and you get hooked up with Robert E. Petersen, the publisher of Hot Rod magazine. You actually live
Yeah,
near you live near each other, and belong
yeah.
to some of the same professional groups. And you said not long ago you became good friends, and the thought of a car museum in Los Angeles. I don't know why this wasn't thought of back in the 20s or 30s, but you start on this path to create this experience, a cultural icon.
Yeah.
Tell me the
So,
story
okay.
of
I really became close with Bob like in the late 70s. I had joined the family business, and I joined a group called YPO, Young Presidents Organization. We started to build it. I've always kind of liked tangibles and I guess been entrepreneurial. When I was in college, I sold college stationery and I bought and sold motorcycles, and I've always liked tangibles. I've never been a stock market guy. So the family business did appeal to me because I like buying and selling. And my dad was of the Depression generation, so his focus was like, he would buy closeouts. He would find out where he could buy something on the cheap, and I would look for like quality, image making stuff, the best brands, the best quality, and it was high priced, but that's what we did. So we we got along great, and so the Gearys started to develop a real reputation for high end, and we did well, and we merged the mail order into that, and we really grew a nice business. And so I joined YPO, and in YPO is Robert E. Petersen, and he was also he was a neighbor of mine, but in a much classier house. Okay, there's north of Sunset. He lived large,
got
and
it.
and Robert E. Petersen, even though he started Hot Rod and Motor Trend and so forth, he wasn't a complete car guy. He was more into hunting and fishing and airplanes and sporting life. And Hot Rod. Even though his father had a gas station up by Barstow, and he lived his and knew a lot of the early hot rodders, I can't say that was his main focus. And about I want to say it was probably in the 70s, he had an idea for a car museum. And by the way, there was a car museum sort of, and the Natural History Museum of LA being the only kind of, other than an art museum and a great museum, Natural History Museum of LA took car donations, and they had cars in their basement, okay, or their storage facility that never saw the light of day. So there was a kind of a car, repository for old cars. But so Petersen opened this museum in Hollywood, and his favorite, like, if you had to pick, like, Pete, who's your favorite car designer? He would say George Barris. Okay.
Hmm.
So Robert E. Petersen liked the extreme Barris, custom weird stuff, not necessarily my taste. And he opened a museum. He had Tony Nancy with his dragster there, and they did a burnout on Hollywood Boulevard. And that museum was a complete failure. It was not a success, and it closed shortly thereafter. So Petersen, a brilliant entrepreneur, he kind of was an opportunistic buyer, so to speak. He had everything from guns to gold nuggets to real estate, art. He liked to buy stuff. And so the building that Petersen's in today was built by Seibu, which was a Japanese department store that wanted to expand into Los Angeles, and our Connor Pavilion on top was a tea room, actually. So then Seibu didn't work out so well, and then another group called Orbox came in, and they were kind of a price department store, ready to wear, so forth, and then they failed. So the Petersen Museum building just kind of languished, and somebody, being the real estate guy he is, somebody offered it Robert E. Petersen. That would be a great car museum. So that's kind of how it all started. And then the natural history, Robert E. Petersen and I were on the board of the Natural History Museum together. So we'd go to the meetings. We thought, well, this would be a natural, because the Natural History Museum could have a place to display their cars, and we would build a museum. There was a company called Gray Line Tours, which was like the Greyhound. I mean, they did tour buses. They were the tourist company. We talked to them about headquartering at what is now the Petersen Museum, and we'd have this great museum, and we get 1 million people a year through there at $10 a head, and the Natural History Museum just saw that as like a cash cow. You know, they could give a hoot about hot rods and cars. They just wanted the money. So by partnering with them, we had street cred as a museum. We had their cars. We had the Gray Line Tours as kind of the basis, and would be the tour headquarters. And we were, to start this museum.